G'day, I'm Warwick Schiller and welcome back to another episode of the Principles of Training. I'm Warwick Schiller and welcome back to another episode of the Principles of Training. In this whole series, we're talking about the whole don't go to bed angry principle. When a horse starts to get some anxiety, we have to interrupt that anxiety and return them back to a relaxed state, because we really cannot teach a horse to do anything in a non-relaxed state if we're trying to teach them to do technical stuff, and we also can't survive the danger, the things that could be dangerous if our horses are not in a relaxed state. And the other part of this whole series is about the human factor, what I had called work with the horse you have today, which means you need to be aware of what's going on with your horse all the time. Horses are very good at communicating with us how they feel, and a lot of times when we miss those little things, that's when horses can feel concerned. I really believe that horses feel anxiety when they have no control over what happens to them and don't have control of their surroundings. That's when they feel kind of anxious. And so in this episode, I want to go through some things you can do and things you can notice that will tell you that your horse is starting to be concerned. And probably the first one I want to talk about is something that I call stress indicators. There's been books written about this stuff and people have different names for it. I actually believe these things are an indicator of some sort of a stress. But what you want to notice is when these horses start to tell you that they're slightly stressed, that you just want to recognize it and let them know that you know. If you remember in an earlier episode where I talked about the mustang at the clinic in Texas that was blocking me out, when that little fella turned his head when we went to walk around that side and he blocked us out, I stepped backwards and I waited. So I basically said, I see your concern. And if you haven't seen that episode, this horse, just me stepping back a bit like that, after a while he lay down and went to sleep in this clinic and slept for hours. And his owner said he had never really, she'd had him for 6 years and not really seen him lay down before. And the only thing we did with this horse was tell him we noticed when he was getting a little bit concerned, we noticed the indicators that he told us he was getting slightly stressed. So he was kind of blocking us out, but one of the things these horses will do is that right there, okay? I just stepped away from him. So what these horses will, one of the little things that these horses will do that if you are not very aware, very present and paying attention to them, you won't notice is, so this is my off-the-track thoroughbred ringer, and there's another one of those things, is think about when a horse looks at something. If a horse was here and he was going to look at the camera, usually his ears would go up, his head would turn, his eyes would so his eyes and his ears and his head would all look at that thing. Okay? A lot of times when we're around our horses and they look away from us, we tend to think that they're looking at something or distracted or whatever. But a lot of times these horses will look away. It might be for a split second, it might be for a while, but they can look away, and that look away is kind of like, oh, that's a bit too much. It's an indication of their stress. And this is my off-the-track thoroughbred ringer. I've had him for over a year now, probably a year and a half. And the reason I've got him out here today is because he does it a lot. So I figured while I'm talking to you guys, I can observe that with him. And the reason I've got him facing this way is so that while I'm talking to you, I can be aware of that. I'm trying to be aware of him while I'm talking to you at the same time. There'll be no use me having this horse standing beside me while I'm talking to you because I wouldn't notice those little things. But as I mentioned a minute ago, think about when a horse looks at something, his head, his ears and his eyes will all line up. And what some of these horses will do, and I'll see if he'll do it right now. I'm just going to step up here towards him. And he didn't do it. Hey, Mr. Ringer, how you going? But what he will do quite a bit, as you approach him, or if you even look at him, that could be one right there. I'll just step back. Even look at him is, he will, if think about his eyeballs, like this is his eyes here. Oh, you coming to say hi? This is his eyes here. They will tend to turn their eyes a little bit and then turn their head, but their eyes and their head are not looking in the same direction. Kind of like that right there. And you notice his ears didn't prick. See, his ears aren't pricked right now? I can see the whites in the back of his eyes on the back side of his eye on this side. So right then, he just turned his head away from me, didn't look at something, and his eyes were not looking the same place his head was looking. His eyes were kind of rolled back in his head a bit. And he's probably going to have a lick and a chew right about. No, he didn't. A lot of times after you step back and let them know that you see that, they'll have a little bit of a lick and a chew. So that's one thing you can do. And like I said in that earlier episode with that Mustang, that's all I did was step back and let him know that I saw his area of concern. So it's one thing to identify these little indicators of stress, but you're probably wondering, well, what do I do to use this information to help me get along better with my horse and make my horse feel more comfortable? And the big thing is you can either do something or you can do nothing, depending on what it is. But let's say you went to walk around the side of your horse, kind of like the Mustang in Texas, and I went to walk around the side of him and he blocked me, or as I went to walk around the side of him, he turned his head away from me. Just step back to where you were. Just all it is saying, I saw that. It's letting them know how in the moment you are and how much attention you're paying. And just step back and let them know I saw that. Another thing you can do is, let's say I was just standing here, and this horse does it quite a bit, which is why I've got him out here. Let's say I was just standing here. I didn't approach him, but while I was standing here, he did it like right there. He might have been looking at something then, but let's say that was one of those stress indicators. I will step directly away from the direction his head went in. Okay, I'm not going to step away from his body, because I'm still in relative proximity to his head, and it's not his body that's moving away from me. Are you going to be on camera here, mister? So if he turned his head that way, I would step away. And like I said, it's really, all you're doing is showing those horses how much attention you're paying. There's a big sigh and a lick right there. Show them how much attention you are paying and showing them that you have a bit of empathy for them. My next door neighbours who live over the back over here, last year had a halfling that they'd bought somewhere because they wanted a cute fluffy pony, and they could catch him, and they'd even ridden him, but he was really worried about the whole thing, and he'd go and let you catch him, but he just carried a level of anxiety that was getting in the way of everything they were doing. And so I went over and worked with him, and I started outside his pen. So I was a long way away from him, and he was showing those stress indicators there. When I first walked up to outside his pen, he turned his head away and his eyes while I was still outside his pen, and he was kind of halfway down that pen. But when I stepped back away from there, so I noticed his concern, I turned and I stepped away, and I was talking to the camera. I turned and I stepped away, and as I turned and stepped away, he noticed that I stepped away as he kind of said that he was concerned, and as soon as I stepped away, his head came around, he goes, hey, look, and he walked towards me, okay, and he said, oh, this guy pays attention to me. And so they'd had a hard time catching this horse, and you could catch him, but I mean, he wasn't like this, he didn't come over, and you just didn't feel that cool, love to hang with you kind of vibe. And so you may be a long way away from your horse when you actually see this stuff happen. Another thing you can do is, it might not necessarily be one of the head turning stress indicators like I think Ringer is doing right now. I'll step over here. It might not necessarily be one of those, but it could be a level of stress. I recently worked with a Mustang at a clinic, and this horse, when I first saw, when I first took a hold of the lead rope, he was quite concerned about me. His ears were on me. He kind of had that rock back stance. So I might even lose the flag and just step up here and just chill for a bit. And what I may do is see if I can approach him. Hey, sweetie. So there's no use me sending this horse off, because this horse was half suspicious. I mean, like, am I going to have to flee from you? And then I go, the first thing I want to teach you to do is flee from me. You know what I mean there? So that's working with the horse you have today. That's reading the horse you have right now. So even though I'm standing in front of a crowd of people and I was about to show them how I would send this horse off, this horse just said, sending me off right now is not the best idea. So what I'd probably do with him is come over here and go, do you have an itchy spot? Do you have somewhere that feels good? You know, find the feel. Oh, is that it there? Yes, that's it right there, isn't it? Okay. So I've just completely changed his perception about me. His perception about me was, oh, I may have to flee from you. If I go, I'm working on, my job today is working on getting you to go. I'm going to ignore how you're feeling about it and work on the go. So what I might do here with one like this, so think about when you asked him to go, what happened? You lost connection. I'm building connection right here, and then he has a lick and a chew. And what I might do here is walk away from him and then walk back towards him and give him some more of the same. Get him half thinking, hey, can I be with you? Does that make sense there? Really, it's really helpful if you can be very aware of what your horse needs right now. Now, he might not be stepping backwards with you. You could have probably sent him off right then, but had a bit of stranger danger with me. Okay, so now I'm going to walk over here with my flag, and I'm going to, oops. So what did he just do then? I picked the flag up, and he's like, oh, but then he came back, oh, look at this, see? So see how easily you can change their perception. Like he was, we would have to say he was quite concerned about me a minute ago. Like, yeah. So you can see from that clip there, that horse started out being a little bit concerned about me, and I had been planning on sending that horse off around me in a circle, but I recognized that he was concerned, and I took steps to change that concern, to let him know I was aware of that concern and change his thoughts about me. And you can see at the end of that, instead of being concerned about me, he kind of had that coming up, saying hello, how you going sort of thing. Something I used to do quite a bit of with horses to supposedly get them quiet and relaxed was to desensitize them quite a bit. And desensitizing would be exposing a horse to something and not taking it away till the horse showed some sort of improvement about its proximity. You know, if I had say I had a flag or something rather, and I bought it, let's say Ringer here had a halter on with a lead rope, and I brought that flag out here and Ringer got a bit concerned and started walking around, I wouldn't take the flag away, I wouldn't put it any closer, I'd allow him to move his feet, and as he walked around I would wait for him to either slow down or stop or give me some sign of relaxation, some sign of being less concerned about it, and I would take that flag away, and I would teach him to be less concerned about things in order to control them. You know, trying to basically rewire his brain so that they don't panic about things. They think that, you know, you kind of teach them to think their way through situations. And I've done that a lot in the past and it's helped a great deal. But one thing I have found, I think, that works better is something that's almost completely different to that. And what you can do in that state is, let's say I was going to work with, say, a tarpaulin, you know, I got a tarp out and brought towards him. If I did what I did in the past and brought that tarp out, I would tend to want to stay there till he stopped moving. But what I've done with, say, this horse is I brought the tarp out, and when I brought the tarp out, what he did was he raised his head slightly and turned his head slightly away from me, one of those stress indicators telling me that he's slightly concerned about that. And when he did that, I took the tarp away. So the first time I did that, his head went up and moved a bit away from me. I took the tarp away. I said, I see your concern right there. I see that bothers you. I'll take it away for you, okay? And I'll wait for you to be relaxed again before I try it again. The second time I tried it, he looked away, but as I took the tarp away from him, so he was looking over that way, you know, he's thinking off over there. As soon as his head raised up and he looked away, I took the tarp away. As I took the tarp away, he kind of followed it a bit and leant over with his left front foot. Where are you going? You want to scratch? He leant over with his left front foot, so he got curious about it. And then the third time I did it, as I brought the tarp around, instead of thinking away from it, he became curious and moved straight towards it. So I think it's really important that you can be aware of your horse's rising concern, and things don't go hugely wrong until they go slightly wrong, okay? And it's the thing about that. So something else you see a lot of people having trouble with, let's say they're trail riding their horse, they're riding somewhere and they're riding along and their horse's head goes up and their ears prick forward and they're kind of stuck like that and they're kind of concerned about something. What tends to happen right there, Ringer, you can go off and do your business. What tends to happen right there is those horses look at something, they start thinking about, oh, what's going to happen? And then they get closer and you can feel them puff up underneath you. And you get closer and you feel them puff up and you know something's coming and then you have this explosion. So the key to that is to be able to redirect their attention when that happens. So I've got a horse here of my wife's, his name's Dale, and he is a little bit concerned about this end of my arena right here because my neighbour's recently got some cows and the cows are behind this wooden fence here, so you can't see the cows but you can hear the cows, and he gets a little bit concerned when we're heading down this end. So what I've been doing with him is if I'm walking along this fence and his ears prick up and I feel him start to go, ooh, what's going on? I'm going to actually turn him away from them. I'm going to pick up my right rein because that fence is on my left, turn him until his inside ear flicks back towards me. As soon as, he might walk half a circle, he might walk 2 circles, but what I want to do is redirect his attention back to me, that I'm going to let go. When you do that, you're doing a couple of things. You are diffusing the situation by taking away the thing that he's a little bit concerned about. But the big thing is you are mentally redirecting him over here. So you're going to stay there until he kind of goes, and his mind comes over here, which means he's forgotten about that. It's a little bit like meditation. I've talked about it in previous episodes. It's a little bit like teaching them to meditate, but it's under saddle. And then what I did after that was I'd go back a little further and I would repeat it, and I'd go back and repeat it, and I'd keep repeating it until I could touch that. When his head went up and his ears went forward, I kept repeating it till I could touch that rein, and as I touched that rein, his ear flicked back towards me, and when it did, instead of turning away from me, what I can do then is I can keep walking straight and ask for something subtle. I might ask for a halt and a back up until his ears flick back towards me, but then eventually you can be riding along, and when his ears go up and he starts to think, what is that? You can do maybe something like a little half halt. Just close your fingers, sit a little bit, and those ears will flick back to you. And what you've done right then is you've diffuse that situation. If you think about you think about the whole thing behind that, how you diffuse that situation was taking him away from the thing so it doesn't get worse, okay? And the other thing was letting him know that you are aware the exact instant his mind goes off the thing that's bothering him and it comes on to where you are. And it's just like with those little stress indicators on the ground. I think if you can really let your horse know that you are paying attention to the little things, it can really help a great deal. You know, we had a clinic here last weekend and we had another incident right here to where a girl has a horse and he's good on the ground, okay? He's fine on the ground, but when she rides him, he's really, really wound up. And I said to her, there's got to be a point somewhere between good on the ground and wound up under saddle. I said, have you ever taught him to come up to you on a mounting block or a step stool, bucket, anything like that? And she says, not really. I said, well, let's start to work on that. And when we started to work on that, excuse me, we found initially that she's good on the ground, okay? That's great there. But when she starts to get a bit above him, so it's kind of halfway between on the ground and on his back, that's when he gets a bit concerned and he'd tend to want to block her out and think away from her. And so it's all about breaking things down. And so I had a stand on the mounting block and I had to start to teach him to come up beside her on the mounting block. But initially, just her being on it was actually a big bucket. Initially, her being up on that bucket, he was thinking away. And we spent quite a bit of time working on that stuff till we could get him to where he could be a bit closer and a bit closer and a bit closer. And she spent probably several hours just working on that thing, step by step by step. But in the end, there was a huge change in the horse to where she is halfway between the ground and being on his back, and he is just as relaxed as he was when she was standing on the ground. So it's really about observing your horse and seeing when they start to get concerned and letting them know that you are aware of their concern. You know, a lot of times in the past we would think that backing off when a horse gets concerned teaches them to get concerned. I mean, I know that was my mentality back then, because, you know, if you think about whenever you remove any pressure, whatever your horse is doing when you remove that pressure, it's almost like he takes his phone out and he goes shh, and takes a picture of what he's doing right then. That's been my thoughts in the past, and for a big part of it, that is true, but that's more the training part of it. But the whole connection, communication part of the whole thing is if you can really let those horses know that you're aware of their concern, and you can also start to interrupt their concern and redirect their thoughts. You know, I talked a lot before in one of the previous episodes about meditation, and if you're anxious, you're living in the future, and if you're depressed, you're living in the past, and if you're peaceful, you're living in the right now. And all of that, you know, if you use a meditation practice to help with either anxiety or depression, it's all about redirecting your thoughts back here. And so with our horses, it's all about redirecting their thoughts. If you are unaware of what their thoughts are, you know, if you don't really know where their thoughts are or what they're thinking, it's really hard to redirect their thoughts or interpret what's going on. So that's the part where it's really important that we are present, and like I've mentioned in other episodes too, present without judgment. Don't start reading big stories into it. Just be really aware of what your horse is doing and be empathetic and back off when you need to. So hopefully that gives you some ideas about stress indicators and how you can use them to interrupt your horse's escalating worry, and how you can really help your horse be confident in your judgment. So we'll see you guys next time here in another episode of The Principles of Training.